Oh, looks like we're live. Give me 1 second. All right. Trying to make this go public right away. Come on. Yes. Okay, good. I want to make it public. All right.
All right.
Brushstroke. I'm Ralph Jean Pierre, Precious Gorgeous. I'm here with my good friend, Jonathan Kaplan.
Hey, man.
Hey, Caps. When I was doing the title for this episode, I didn't know. I just put comedian because comedian nowadays is this big umbrella title you can use for anything. You expect a comedian to be a podcaster and an actor, but you do all those things. You also make your own web series that you've been working on for the last 3-4 years. 4 years.
I mean, our first season was out in fully at the end in the beginning of 2017, and now we have a whole pilot that's finished and it's just being edited. So
for the second season, the pilot for the second season,
right?
Yeah, and you make that with Marianne Bayard. The show's called Killing It. It's a web series that you guys have written.
Yeah, actually, the new series is going to be called Mares and Caps. So, the second the second season is actually just a new season of a new show. That's
whoa.
Yeah. And honestly, because we haven't talked to people about it, because we've been working on it, we haven't said that, but it's what it is. It's called Mares and Caps.
I mean, that makes sense. Killing It is a beautiful title, and Killing It was a beautiful title for the training wheel, season that taught you how to work together and do that show. Really, there were kind of 2 seasons already, by 2 seasons that were kind of truncated or shoved together into one of this web.
Yeah, it's a very good way of thinking about it, because the first 5 are so unique to themselves, and then the other ones are us experimenting.
Yes. So yeah, you do that wonderful show, and you also do some stand-up, and you do this hilarious podcast called The Low End Gigolos with
Josh Pallet and Kevin Sanchez.
Josh and Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always confused between Josh and Jared, and I don't know where I'm going. But Joshua and Kevin, and you do Low End Gigolos, you do stand up, you've done clown, you are a film, you do Grading Animals, you're a filmmaker, you were a musician, you played in bands, you do design, you do photography. Oh, I mean, I was just thinking. I was talking to O'Henry last night. I was like, man, he's probably the most hyphenated person I've interviewed. But when I really think about it, you've now taken that title.
Well, thanks. I mean, that's an interesting thing when you brought it up. You put me under the heading of comedian or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of things, and I think of myself as an artist, or it's just I like getting into.
You're literally classically trained, at drawing and stuff.
Yeah,
you study human anatomy and classical drawing and
crochet. I mean, listen, I tried at everything I've done. I've tried very hard, and I've got as far as I could with it. So,
yes, wow. So we talked a little bit about everybody. We're all talking about quarantine stuff, but I feel like you and I have a very similar perspective on we're recording this in the middle of this COVID-19.
I mean, another thing, me and you had a podcast for a long time. We won't be here forever. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, which I'm so thankful for, because first season, or the first 2 seasons of Killing It, I think it taught me. Now I do these 2 other podcasts, and I'm doing this, and I think I learned doing that show with you, what my voice is as a interviewer in a podcast. I mean, I'm still learning, but you really. I think you had more facility with it, and you were really pushing me toward find bits, be fun. This podcast is not very funny, but now doing Start a Morning Show with Sean, I more feel okay, I more can see the forest for the trees and see what role am I supposed to play in each of.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun.
And I hate it.
Yeah, it's fun to play with you. I was gonna say, it's fun to play with you because you're Well, you mentioned the phrase "forest through the trees" just now.
You freeze?
You said it doesn't matter. Yes, you're fun to play with, and I think that like because you're so
I missed the entire compliment because I was frozen. I want it again.
But I was gonna say that because you're so like serious about things and you sort of get a tunnel vision, you're easy to attack.
Yes. Yes.
And that's something that
yeah,
that's like a part of my comedy, or like a part of my energy, is like to be a little attacking. I think the
it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating how it's like I imagine like being on a basketball court. Like everybody can conceptualize and visualize how they move and how they operate on a court differently. You know what I mean? Some people see it as maybe as a grid. Some people see it as energy that's moving. Some people are doing a bunch of math. It's like everyone has not only physical skills and talents, but different intelligences and also different ways of seeing the board that is so fascinating. Like for all the ways that you and I and we're always talking about how we're similar, I don't think I could ever see the board the way you do.
I think it's just the energies that people have with each other. Like, for instance, like with the Gigolos, I am really aggressive. Like, I think the show is like like a boxing, but like with Marianne, I definitely am not the dominant player. Like I can't compete. She's so much more like the bully, and I know how to play that side too. I don't know. I think that like I think improv was a good like and improv and clown were like a good prepared me for this, but I think that I'm like good. I can play against a lot of different stimuluses, you know, find ways to work myself in. But I didn't always have that ability, I think, for sure. For a long time I didn't. But you know, also it's like to find the right people to actually find create a creative space with. Like I talked to you about this. We talked about this on our old podcast, where it's like it's actually a miracle to find a true friend. Everyone, like, we live in a world where a friend is thrown around like currency, but like to find a true friend is like a needle in a haystack. And I think that's true also of finding a creative partner that you can really like, you know, butt heads and like get dirty and get fun and like have real fun where you're not afraid of like stepping over the person, or also finding like a real true harmony where you're also giving and they're accepting, and vice versa.
Yeah, I love that idea of like, yeah, you are searching, you're searching and searching, like, and yeah, it's a miracle when you land in a dynamic that suits you. I also found so interesting this idea. And of all people, Owen Wilson made me see this thing that you were talking about of how you are with Marianne and how you are with the Gigolos. It's a miracle.
Yeah,
it's a miracle that you found those three people, because you did really find your tribe, and you found people who really see your vision, and which is like not especially a miracle for you, but there's an irony there because someone who's so much seen themselves as an outcast and as a loner and as nobody, and you have these people who are so on your team and so built to play with you. But also, when I think about Owen Wilson, I always think about the fact that when he's paired with Jackie Chan, who is a comedy and action legend, is a world-class martial artist, and also one of the biggest stars in his country, China, like a huge star by the time he does, what the fuck is the name of that movie he did with Jackie Chan? The Western, Shanghai Nights.
Okay.
Shanghai Noon. By the time he does Shanghai Noon, Jackie Chan is this cultural icon, but yet Owen Wilson is the alpha. But that's just the dynamic. With Vince Vaughn is undoubtedly the alpha.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. You know, at that point, I would say they're both pretty equal, you know, because Vince Vaughn has swingers and all these successes that he had. And
Also, Vince
but
Vaughn's natural energy has like a weight to it, whereas like Owen Wilson's type is like a doofy blonde surfer guy. He comes off as, you know. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I don't necessarily see Owen Wilson as like someone who's going to like. If Owen Wilson is telling you something seriously, I'm almost like might crack up in his face. You know what I mean? Like that's his energy.
Yes, that's true. But I mean, Vince Vaughn really had that same kind of energy. I mean, he's probably like 6'3", but like next to Jon Favreau and Swingers, he's not the alpha. He's sort of like the wild card, but it's really Jon Favreau's story, and he's kind of the leader of the gang, and this guy's just the wild card. So it's like it depends on who he's next to. That it's like for everybody. There's some guys who are just built to be the alpha in most cases, but even for them, you know, sometimes they're gonna you know, be over on the side. I don't know. It's very those kinds of dynamics are always really interesting to me. That sometimes chemistry is just chemistry. No matter what you want to do with it, it just works out a certain way.
I think also like in terms of playing like the alpha or the beta is age. Like when I was much younger, I felt it was really easy for me to be like the little like runt who wasn't listening to authority, and like that was like a very easy like pocket for me to play comedically with people in. But as I got older, like I actually like I guess my station is in life has improved a little bit, so I'm able to take on like authority humor, like authority characters as a humor too. I mean, I don't know. I think that, you know, I think that it's just something that I could never access. I remember being in like Eric Davis's class one time, and it was like about be the high status or something like that. And like, I really, like, I couldn't even figure out what that was. Like, I didn't even know what my idea of it was still like a low status thing.
Oh, wow. And I mean, to add context, I mean, that's where we met. We both met interning for, which is
13 years ago.
I think he was
12 or 13 years ago.
Shit.
It has to be 2007.
Probably about 12. Yeah, I think I met him. It was like 8 or 9. It couldn't have been earlier than 7 because I moved back to New York in 7.
Okay.
And I think it was like 8 or 9. Might have been 8.
Yeah, I mean that goes back to like the beginning of like my whole involvement in clown stuff, and you know, yeah, that's the scene that we came out of. And in fact, like when you were asking me about these questions about like, I don't know, like the what you choose or things you're inspired, like eventually the thread went back to like these core things that seem to recur in my life, these themes that recur in every iteration of like my artistic development. So it's very funny. Like when I was like, oh, what do I pick? Do I pick this or do I pick this? And well, this is similar to that. So yeah, so it's just, I guess you don't, I just read this great book. I'll plug this great book. I just read this great book called The Overstory. And in it, it's central to the theme are trees. And something from the book is that humans think that time is a thread, that it's like, I do this, and then I do this, and I do this, and I do this. But what time is a series of rings. You are the person you are at this age. And then like you're covered by the bark of this age, still containing this. And now you grow out as in like this. And it's funny because like that's true of when I was thinking about this question you asked me about my artistic, like what do I am inspired by? I'm like, oh wow, I've continued to be inspired by these things that have these this criteria in them that I seem to always like, but it's evolved as I got further. And then the opposite of it is like these are the kinds of people that I'm inspired by of peers, like throughout my life. So it's just like, you know, yeah, like you build upon. I think we just accumulate. We accumulate our lives in that way, which is, and you should read that book, The Overstory by Richard Powers.
Richard Bowers. Okay, Powers. Yeah, that's such an interesting thought. Wow. Yeah, I do. I find that same thing too. Of like I can pinpoint for myself like 3 there's many, but three things that I'm like, ooh, these are moments where I took a hard left or I took a hard right, like from these things. And like there's definitely similarities, strong similarities to all those things. And yeah, you're kind of it's sort of like life gives you these little moments where you go, oh, that's my DNA. Oh, that's it, and you keep recognizing it over time, and hopefully you go toward it and explore it maybe. So let's go right into it. Let's go into this first piece that you chose. That let's do the one who's not up here, like the famous artist that you want to talk about.
All right, I decided to choose The Raven and the First Man by Bill Reed.
What is that?
Sculpture. It's a sculpture by Bill Reed. Bill Reed is a Haida artist from the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest Native Americans is a tribe. There's a tribe called the Haida, and that region of the world has developed this, well, like totem pole art, but like specifically the Haida and the Lingit, like those tribes have developed this like very sophisticated graphic language that has always mesmerized me. And in fact, right before the pandemic hit, I was actually in Vancouver and I revisited the Douglas Reynolds Gallery, which is a gallery of like modern art that's all Haida, Lingit, and like native art.
Okay.
And I've been following that gallery since 2004, since like I fell in love with, and like I've ordered stuff. Their stuff is very expensive, but like I have a lot of books on the stuff, and like this is Bill Reed's artwork, and I have T-shirts of this shit, and like even in Killing It, like I'm wearing a Bill Reed shirt when I'm doing pull-ups in episode 8. But like it's such a central thing to me. And then when you asked me about it, I was like, what is it about this thing? You know what I mean? Why is this? Because I had other things that I was going to pick, but like I decided to pick this, but the other things have the same similarity. So like this is my explanation of like why I'm drawn to it. So you can see when you look at this stuff, when you look at this type of artwork, like that the marks that are being made they're not at random. There's like a real science to what's being done here. It's so precise. And also, and that's the thing that I'm really drawn to. I am drawn to like, you could call it classicism. Like you could call it like classicist art, like someone who like is like very crafted, really like meticulously, like you could tell that a layperson couldn't do this if they wanted to. They'd have to like learn it. But it's also like very expressive, and it's very much alive. And like I just wanted to show this one thing. I mean, I'm really going full nerd on this.
Let's go full nerd.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity. I just want to show you a thing. So like, for instance, like this design right here is a killer whale, and it's distilled from this. Now this is a killer whale using a square, using a killer whale design in a rectangle, a killer whale reduced down to the simplest forms that tell the story. All of them tell the story of that, like man and nature are combined. Like one does not live to serve the other, or vice versa. Like it's a cycle, and this idea gets repurposed over and over again until like it's just I mean, it is just good graphic design. I like to say that this is the best graphic design that ever like existed. So like it's funny because like it's especially with grading animals, like I have like a lot of the themes of this stuff kind of like has always been like in my head, you know?
How does this relate to you do this wonderful nature and wildlife series called Grading Animals, where you grade, they're like short minute-long videos where you grade wildlife, you grade these animals of different, from different climates and species. I don't know what the words are, but categories, and they're really funny and they're really fun. How do you feel that art
to this.
relates specifically to grading animals?
Well, I think that like for one, even though grading animals is like funny, it's a comedy thing. I think at this point it's like another language. Like it's in my own language. Like nothing I've done. Like I've done stand up. I do all these different things. But like grading animals is so central to like what I like. It's like really from my soul. Like it's something that's like my own weirdness that I'm allowing to share. So it's like in the same way that like if you look at this, like you don't know what the fuck this means, but if you're attracted to it, you're attracted to its specificity of its own shit. It's its own shit, right? I think that like grading animals is really truly like my own thing that I'm doing. That it's like this is what I want to do. I don't want to talk about what everybody is talking about. I don't even want to be in the scene. Like I don't even want to be involved. I just want to do what I want to do. And like this is an expression of that. And the other thing that I think it connects to this stuff is that whenever you look at Pacific Northwest Coast art, like you can tell that like there's a precision to it. It's really like meticulously done. It's classicist. And like, I mean, I don't know. I work really hard on my grading animals things. They are crafted. Like they are a crafted piece. And like, in a way, I think that's like, I think in a lot of my stuff, I maybe not low end gigolos, but definitely killing it and grading animals. Like I have a sort of like precision that I want to go for. So I think that's how those things connect.
I mean, I would say I see it and hear it in grading animals in that, well, here's what I showed me those and then you brought up grading. The thing that I see in all that is a thread and I guess an abstract way. And it's funny because those images are abstracted. And I always think about how you're like, fuck abstract art. But like those images are very like not literal. Like they are what they are. There's a form inside them, but it's like it's distilling shapes and lines to an emotion, and there is supposed to be a figure in there, but that's not necessarily the primary thing, or maybe they're neck and neck. Right. I'm not trying to debunk you. I just think it's
Ralph. That's what you do. You debunk everything you talk to.
It's debunk, but I do want to say that there's those images and those figures. Grading animals and low and jiggle is the one thing that about them is they're all very musical. You have three guys who you play lead. Kevin is on the bass, kind of keeping everything grounded and sort of like almost like reinforcing your bond, and wow. Josh is on the outside, kind of all over. You know what I mean? Kind of, and you guys switch roles a lot. A lot of times, sometimes Josh is playing lead, and then you're kind of attacking all over and switching roles. And Kevin is usually in this kind of role of like, even with his kind of arch and York and very kind of specific point of view, he's still grounding it. So, and then there's just a rhythm to the way you guys play. This guy jumps in, this guy pulls back. This guy has a monologue. This guy pulls, and you're jumping in and darting, and it's very musical. Those pictures are there's music to it. There's definitely like, okay, this fat line, then a skinny line, fat. You know what I mean? And then same with your stand up, and definitely with grading animals. There's like a da 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 D. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know,
it's. I mean, I think it's like it's its own language. It's like it's its own song. Like there was one that I did just recently, the Aardwolf, and like there's like my walking part. I was like, I mean, like I'm talking to you, but I was like, oh man, I feel like I was rapping on that part. Like I was like, my walking part of the Aardwolf. I was like, man, that was like, I was rapping.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it is, I mean, it's so funny. I mean, they always talk about how many comedians are musicians or this and that. And Steve Martin and Woody Allen, who Anya and I saw on International Women's Day in Central Park a few weeks ago. We saw Woody Allen.
That's great.
And how musical all that stuff is. And it's so And of course, you have a background. You came up, playing in, I guess you'd call them punk bands or art bands
I mean,
in,
yeah,
in high school and
college too. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was
wow.
gonna like when I had to pick my when I had to pick my the person who like the local person, like, I wanted
Yeah,
to,
let's go right into it.
yeah, well, I wanted to pick Jason Rosenthal from On the Might of Princes, who was a great, huge influence to like every form of expression that like I went into from when I knew him and then afterwards. But I guess so. I had him in the idea, but I wanted to choose Julie Katakis actually. So I would choose both of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? What swayed you over to Julie?
Well, I mean, well, for one thing is that like back in the golden age of saying wild shit on Facebook, which was a few years ago, like when it was really
Yeah.
fun place to be. Like I knew Julie from like the stand-up scene or whatever, but she like started like, I mean, she would post a lot and like be really like riffing out and like just saying the craziest shit all day long on Facebook. And it was like her developing her voice. And like it like and then like when people would comment and like play her game that she was offering in the like the online character, like they would like their comments, whether positive or negative, would like she would yes and them, and it became like this cacophony. And like like she created like she co-created or created her character that she does for Scary Mommy, Madge the Vag. And but like even all of her like her solo videos that she made, like just like watching her make her own thing that's like of her own voice and it's very like true to who she is, like that stuff was really inspiring to me. And like at the time I was not at the place where like I was able to make things, or I don't know, like I was just not like at that, so I always admired that. I always admired that facility and also that like playfulness and that wildness, because like in a lot of ways it's gone from the internet now, like especially with like just like the tone of Facebook. But like I think it's also like the world age has changed. But yeah, like that was like a huge like inspiration.
Mm.
And it was only like I guess like from like 2014, 2015, 2016. But I mean, like I would have picked Jason Rosenthal from On the Might of Princes because like, so like he was in this like really loved band called On the Might of Princes that was around in Long Island 20 years ago. And just like the type of expression and the type of intensity that he brought to the stage and brought to performance was like the soul like escaping the body. Like they say that I mean, this is going to sound, the kid's dead, so maybe it's all right to like put it into this context, but they say the symbol of the cross is like eternity, like divinity crossing in the field of time. So it's like, you're alive and it's going to be here, but this moment is eternal. So this moment is like forever, but now we only have this moment. Like you live and you die. In a way, those type of performances with the like the explosiveness that this kid brought to the stage was like the fucking soul, like ripping out and just like going everywhere. And like, I remember like we used to play shows with this band and it was incredible. Like you didn't even know what the fuck was going on. He charged everybody in the room and just turned it like explosive. And like years later, when I first did like improv or anything, like years later when I left doing music or like performed other things, like I always like tried to like bring my own like where is my like explosive energy. I think that like in Killing It, like I don't really have that because I'm playing a different side, but like definitely like the intensity of Low End Gigolos that where it can get sometimes is for sure me like I mean that spirit like was so like defining for me and a lot of people of that who were around that band at that time. So like that's my other person. I'll pick two people.
This is a very, I think, Ralph comment to make, but I think that does exist in sometimes the way you look at Marianne on the archetype of the little brother. I mean, you're so fully embodying that you just want to help her. She's screwed up, but you think she's the greatest, and you're just like, yeah, it's great. And then you kind of rib her, but like, how do I put it?
Well, yeah, it's almost
you
like
couldn't define it as explosive, but what is jumping off of the screen is that you're whatever your character is, that it's jumping off of the screen. There's beauty about it. Same for Marianne. There's nothing ambiguous about it at all. It is almost eternal. Tipple it is, and probably why I guess for me and whoever it does resonate for, why it resonates, because those people you're playing, we somehow seem to know them right away.
Well, you know, the interest, like Killing It is another thing that, like, when Marianne and I made it, it was another like turning into ourselves and making something that's very specific to us. Like, I mean, in a way, like Grading Animals, it is like the thumbprint of Marianne and I. Like, it's so true to our very specific natures, and it's not like trying to be something that it's not, or trying to replicate something. Like, I mean, one of the things that it's not is like when we were just starting our web series, there was a lot of like New York web series about like being a New Yorker and being an actress. And one of the things that like Killing It is it's not about being in New York or that experience at all. Like, it doesn't like pretend to be. It's more about like this relationship and that, and only that, because the first 8 episodes only take place in that one room.
Wow. That is so fascinating. Yeah, that it's sort of. I mean, to me, it goes back to, what are the name of those designs you showed me? That drawing.
This is just like Haida art, or like Pacific Coast, Indian art of the Northwest Coast. That's what you should call it.
Okay, so to me, it's like that, where you go, what is, I need to, one, find the essence of this thing, and then I need to even distill that essence down even more into this small capsule that I can deliver to people, and that it will make an impact. Whether they know what it is they're even looking at or not, I need them right away. And it feels like, I hope I'm not reaching, it's just occurring to me, it feels like that is what it feels like you're about two things, which is always be your fucking self, and then whatever that is, shoot it out. Like,
thank you. This
is who I am, and
that's a great thing to.
Oh, here it is. Yeah.
I mean, you know what? Working with Marianne, like, you know, I always say that, like, I'm like a punk who wants to be a classicist. Like, I have so much faculty, but I try really hard to make something and make it perfect, and like, not necessarily perfection for perfection's sake, but like to bring my excellence to it. Whereas Meredith is more expressive. She enjoys to just like get the feeling out as it is, and like that's what it is. Like, put the frame around like the chaos, you know? But like, it is interesting that like I have chased that like in a lot of things. Like, even I studied at crochet and classical drawing for years and years and years, where it's like the mark of perfection is so minute. You have to like really just like suffer for, like this. It's such a steep climb for like to be good. It's like people would look at your work and it's like, oh, you're good. It's like, no, I really fucking suck. I don't understand what's going on inside the body. body is like, I need to like, you know, it's just like, but I don't know. That is something that I chase, or like that is part of this thing that I face every time I try to make something. Like I end up exploding into like a complicated puzzle.
God, I mean, that's so because that's exactly what you showed me, which is like, okay, here's this thing. How do I fucking take that and reform it back into the thing I want? And you're just inside of it. And it even goes back to like you're probably in your studio right now, which is just like full of gear and stuff that you're using and teaching yourself to use to make your thing. And how do we write this, and what is writing, and I'm working with this other person, and or we're building this show from the inside out, and or I'm writing these songs, and I play this classical, like everything. That's also something I'm just not realizing I've never appreciated about you, which is like that you are utterly hands-on inside of even with the pilot you shot. Like you and Mares could have, if you had the money, probably done it yourself. Maybe not as well as a more experienced, but you know how to do, and you were determined to be inside of and know how to do everything. It's so interesting, and this is go ahead if
No, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that, because like we talking about hands-on, so we had shot the pilot and we had to go back and reshoot a whole scene, because like the set that we had written wasn't like exactly the way it needed to be. And so that when you watch the rough cut, like it didn't tell the story of what we had set out to. So Marianne and I, like by hand, we built the set the way it was supposed to be. And then we had to reshoot a whole section of it. But like, exactly, like we went and like got all the pieces that we needed, and then we went in and like put the whole thing together ourselves. So like, yeah, like it is like, to be hands-on, I think is the only way that you can to like make the thing that you want.
This is a question I want to end on, because I have this insight about you. I think even by the time you had ended that first season, and we were I directed the last episode, and you're talking to me about how insecure, like not prepared you felt as an actor. Which really, from my point of view, when I'm from my point of view, all the things you're proficient at, I would say acting is probably the least of your words to me. I mean, I love it, but it's like if you can do that drawing and play classical guitar and film make, like acting is just like, I feel like any idiot could figure it out. So, but where are you with it now in terms of being someone who knows, who can and engineer everything themselves? What do you feel about acting now at this point?
You know, I think a lot of
you're frozen. You might have to repeat whatever you're saying.
You know, are you back now? Are we back? Are we back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, you know, yeah. Ralph, like me and you have had like discussions, or like even like been at odds about like the level of like precision something needs, you know, the level of gloss or like finishing that like an artwork needs, you know, because like you're probably more on the Marianne side, where it's like just the raw essence is enough, and like I get the feeling, I get the soul from it, and it transfers. And I think that thing I was talking to you about, this like insecurity, you know, I feel like I don't live in the city. Like I never like went to like those schools that like the good, you know, the good acting or whatever. I don't have plenty of criteria that sets me at a disadvantage to people. And I've always felt like, and this is like going back since I was a kid, I've always felt like an outsider, and I've always felt like I have to like work harder to like compete with people who have it easier, or who have like, you know, are cool, or even just to like socially they're like in the scene or whatever. They're closer to like where shit is happening. And I feel like in order for me to like prove myself, like I have to like bring it so hard. So like a lot of times I feel like I maybe like over, overcompensate with technique because I'm afraid that like I'm not enough. And that's probably like, uh, you know, a source of like I could probably be more vulnerable, and I probably in places where like I'm directed well, like the stuff can be stripped off, or even like clowning. Like clowning really does like reset your brain and like bring you back to like being open and being okay with like bombing and being okay with the failure, which is where everything good is going to happen. But like on top of that, I still have like the J caps that's like mechanically figuring out everything and making sure that the sound is good and making sure that like everything's working around, so like I mean we're here like this set, like I built this set in the apartment that you've come to, like it's like it's as best as I possibly could have it. Like there's really like I have like
it's like what? It's like what?
I have C stands mounted to the ceiling. I have like all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I see. So you're so funny because you also don't want to direct any of your stuff, but you almost have like a director's mind in that you're thinking of everything that can go wrong, and it's hard. I guess what you're saying is it's hard for you to feel like you're being present in the moment, which is interesting because you're also like one of the most present people I know. Like you're catching everything, you're on top of everything in terms of what did you just say? Did you just what I mean?
Right.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting to me that you're someone who I feel like we're so down the rabbit hole of like improv and comedy and clown that like to even call somebody a natural actor it doesn't even make sense to me anymore. I don't even know what it means anymore. But like to me, you're so steeped in all that stuff that I still don't know what you're talking about when you're like, I'm not a good actor. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Ralph, you're the best. I love you, Ralph.
Don't get it.
You're the best. What can I say? Thank you, dude.
Well, I love you too, bud. Yes. Well, I mean, let's end it on that note. This has been a beautiful episode. And Mares and Caps will arrive sometime after this quarantine, maybe next year.
Edited
or somewhere. It's out there making the rounds, trying to become a show.
It's being edited. It's still a not edited pilot, but like it's getting there. I'd say watch the first season. It's on Amazon Prime, killing it. Grading Animals on Instagram, exactly like that, at Grading Animals. Please come and check that out. It's a lot of fun. Low End Gigolos, not for little ass babies. If you're a little ass babies, don't listen to the fucking Low End Gigolos. But if you're cool and you want to hear some crazy shit, listen to Low End Gigolos.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ralph. I'm so happy to do
for sure
a podcast with you again. And yeah, man, this was great.
I love it. I love you, bud. Have a good night.
You too.
Savage Brushstroke. All right.